Welcome, y'all, to coffee time, cheers, and YouTube time with Madison Christine. Today, you guys, this is a topic I've been really deeply thinking about and feeling through. And I want to talk about this thing called trauma bonding, and what puts us and causes any of us to get into relationships any which way that become hurtful and toxic and manipulative. It's really important to understand, right, what is the underlying cause to all of this so we can actually do something about it instead of running in circles and finding yourself in the same shame hole, right, and go, why am I here again? You can be the smartest, emotionally intelligent person, and you'll find yourself years later going, how the fuck am I here? Okay, so let's talk about it, because trauma runs so deep. I myself, it literally takes my breath away to this day, even personally, what I walk through and face, knowing so much, having worked with so much, and still the stuff that can come up. Trauma is something, you guys, that takes time. It is its own force of nature that needs respect and deserves respect. Like I've said before, I have a video called Respect to Trauma. So what is trauma bonding? It's characterized by finding yourself in a relationship that is manipulative, dismissive, devaluing. There's emotional abuse involved on any which levels, any forms of abuse. And one finds themselves stuck, even attracted to it. Like you keep finding yourself back in the same repetitive patterns. And it's very painful, and it can be extremely confusing. So I actually have some notes with me today, not typical for me, but I really want to cover these things. And I also want to know I'm resourcing. Not only do I have my own practice in working with this personally and with people, I've also been doing more resourcing and getting education from different people to really ground this and concretize it, since it can feel like you're in a freaking blizzard with the lights out, right? So the first thing, so I have some things to go over of what it is. And the first one in trauma bonding that's very common is justification. Justification is, let's say you're with someone and they've been abusive, manipulative, controlling, and the first thing you might say is, oh, well, they didn't really mean it. Or, well, they had a rough childhood. They're just stressed out and they had a rough day. This is extremely toxic to ourselves, you guys, and to anyone going through trauma to make excuses. And again, this isn't a judgment. We've all been there. It's extremely common. And this is a really important piece of education that's coming through more now than ever. And so the justification, it's even when, let's say, you're going through a grief process. Grief is underneath all of this. Maybe you lost someone, or you dealing with the sexual trauma, and maybe you've been healing for 10 years, and someone's like, well, just get over it. Move on with your life. You know, look at the things that are beautiful. And these are all justifications that are extremely hurtful. So please try to stay away from that. If you're someone who hasn't fully understood what that trauma is or pain is, let's practice this deeper compassion and kindness. So justification is a huge thing that keeps people in. Oh, they're just having a rough go at it this year. You know, oh, they're in a job that's really stressful. This is abusive to be thinking this way, and it keeps people stuck, and it creates enablers. And I am a huge, fierce voice to let's stop enabling abuse, you guys. That's what keeps it running, okay? Second one is believing in future faking. Believing in future faking. What's future faking? Let's say you're with someone and you keep hearing, oh, we're going to take this beautiful trip together. I'm going to treat you to this beautiful meal, and it's not, it just never happens, but it keeps you hooked in, right? It's called baiting. Like if we look at the narcissistic wound, this one is very commonly talked about. The love bombing, the future bait, the future faking, and they bait you in just enough, right? Oh, maybe it's about the wedding you're gonna have, or maybe you've been engaged for years. It keeps the person in, right? Kind of like seduced by this futuristic thinking. That's why it's so important to really be here in the now. What are you seeing right now in front of your face with this person? Okay. Another one is a mystical thinking. So mystical thinking is like, you meet this person, you're like, oh, there's just something about them. Like, oh, I can't really pinpoint it. But something about this person. But the reasoning to be in love with this person is vague. Okay? And often what that indicates, trust me, I humbly speak of this because I was a mess in this area from my own trauma. So I humbly speak of this. But mystical thinking, what's going on there is most often, and guys, most often all trauma that repeats itself in relationship comes from childhood wounds that need processing. And this, like I said, takes so much time. So what that is you're most attracted to the familiarity. It's not this whole love thing. It's being attracted to familiarity from a childhood wound, and subconsciously we're all trying to fix that, right? In that kind of thinking. And it's extremely confusing. And because it's intoxicating, right? There's an intoxication. It's so twisted, right? We come into this world and we, even in movies, love is so misrepresented. It's usually an intoxication to the very toxic pattern that was not healed in childhood, and then we replay it and we replay it until we wake up to it. So go gentle on yourself if you're in this, okay? Another one is being swept up into this black and white thinking. It's getting caught in a box, and you're finding yourself in this repetitive cycle of abuse, the same freaking argument over and over and over again. You found yourself looped back into this crazy making with someone who's showing lack of empathy, who has a very rigid and black and white thinking. That's another one. Often, you guys, when we get caught up in that, we have religious abuse in our background. You might have spiritual abuse. It's this kind of overlooking all those really important details, okay? Next one. Another thing that we can get swept up in trauma bonding is the fear of leaving. We're afraid to leave because we don't know what's going to happen in the unknown. And it's very common in these extremely codependent relationships. It's someone's holding it financially, you have some exchange being worked out, and it's not as easy. A lot of people that don't understand the trauma bond will say, well, just get out. Why are you staying in this relationship? And I'm going to really encourage anyone listening who is now learning this, let's try to stay away from that kind of treatment on people, because it runs so deep. Is it important and the best thing to get out of an abusive relationship? Yes. And am I encouraging you to get out of one? Yes. I also want to speak to the complexities of this, how scary it is for a person who's trauma bonded, who comes from severe abuse in the background. It's no small cakewalk, okay? This is something that takes really deep therapy work and support by someone you trust. And it's an active 24/7 commitment and devotion to the truth of things and to whatever is coming up. There's so much grief, so much that the process usually starts with fight, flight, or freeze, right? And that's a whole other conversation. So that's one. Another one, and again, I'm resourcing these, you guys. I've gotten a lot of really good resources from Dr. Ramani, who does YouTubes and has helped so many people through the narcissistic wound. It's beautiful. Also, Dr. Les Carter. So I'm resourcing these, and I'll put the resources in the description so you can even get more through this. because these nuggets have been so profound and I wanted to share them. Another one is you can become the one-stop shop. If you're someone who comes from abuse and you're still trying to find your ground and who you are, it's very common to get caught up in a relationship where you are walking on eggshells and you think it's your job, to nervously try to make peace, to become their personal assistant. You're doing everything for the relationship. You're wearing the pants, you're wearing the skirt, you're wearing everything. Okay? That's another common trauma bond dealio that we're talking about. And another one, hiding your feelings and needs. This is a huge one too. Hiding your feelings and needs. It's another walking on eggshells to try to make peace. And most likely back in childhood, you learned your feelings and needs did not freaking matter. So you are the one kind of trying to make peace. And that's another part of that. Okay? And then the other one is rationalizing your relationship to others. This is where a really trained eye, and as a therapist, anyone working with people in trauma, is important, because often the person in an abusive situation in a relationship is going to be rationalizing, oh no, they'll ask you, they'll just say, it's like every relationship, it has its problems, it's up and down. I know this one, I've been there too. And then they get into a really isolated space. And that also needs a lot of gentleness, because what's at the core of all of this, you guys? Deep, deep shame. And shame is the feeling is that I am wrong. Okay? So I just want to put a shout out again to the Respect for Trauma. How deep this runs. And I hope that some of these patterns helps anyone watching this wake up even more to your power and to the truth and what you do deserve. These are extremely hard to heal. They're deep, deep patterns, and they are healable, but it takes so much time. Again, it's truly that thing where someone can be like, oh my gosh, I'm succeeding everywhere except for the relational world, right? It is its own force to reckon, you guys. And I think it's becoming more and more respected and seen. We got to get out of this perfectionist idealism. And smash that, right? I humbly speak to this day. And I can say it is healable from a personal experience. Freedom is totally here for us to claim. So let's stop stop gaslighting ourselves. Let's stop invalidating our experiences and get into a place of deeper and deeper truth and power. And you really can for yourself. Are you willing to dedicate to it? Are you willing to devote to it? This isn't just about insights. This is about taking them and making them real and materializing them. So, cheers, you guys. Thanks for hanging with me. It's MadisonChristine.net. I still have some space for one-on-ones. And please hit subscribe if this supports you. And I'll meet y'all on the flip.